What keeps you up at night? For me, it's the lack of economic empowerment for the marginalized communities and the non-literates. I'm so grateful to be a small part in elevating the lives of so many who continue to be on the sidelines. Allow me to take you on my journey in the quest of economic empowerment for the marginalized community. These are the groups that are forgotten. And as we notice, the marginalized communities do not think about economic empowerment. They yearn for it. One afternoon, 8 years ago, I was seated at the library reading for my commercial law exam. I was so eager to grasp each and every section of the mammoth law books. And along my journey in the University of Nairobi, I really wanted to help, but I didn't know how. And when I was seated in this library, I received a strange call. And before I received this call, my friends used to make fun of me and say, the library is your second home. And I would look at them and just smile, giggle. But on this specific day, when I got this call, I was in the library and my phone was on a silent mode. But the caller was terribly insistent, calling after every 5 minutes. And after about 10 calls, I had to walk out of the library and pick this call. I'm glad that I picked this call. It was a strange voice of a man that I've never spoken to before. And he introduced himself and said, "My name is Ali. I am the community elder at Park Road. I was recommended to you by a former chair lady, and I've heard about your community work over the last 5 years. And today I would like to invite you to our community at Park Road. I want us to set up a program to empower these non-literate women in our community to become financially independent and create sustainable livelihoods." For a moment, I froze. I did not understand how this gentleman will assign such a big task to a 22-year-old. And he noticed the silence on my end. And he asked again, "Will you be able to take part in this project?" And not to disappoint him, I said, "Yes, let me see what I can do about it." But immediately I finished this call, I sat down on the benches next to the hostels, deeply thinking, what did I sign up for? Can I transform these women to become financially independent? And together with the community leaders at the Park Road Mosque, we started our first pilot project to empower these non-literate communities to learn basic skills. And after starting the project, this was my awakening moment in life. It was the unforgettable journey that led me to discover for anyone to attain economic empowerment, they need 4 main things. Firstly, the skills that can be monetized. One needs to understand that they need to have skills that can be monetized. According to a World Bank report of 2017 of Sub-Saharan skills development, it stated that Africa does not lack opportunities What it lacks is enough people with the right skills to exploit the boundless opportunities in Africa. It further states that a third of the population in the low and the middle income areas lack basic skills such as problem solving, communication skills, behavioral skills. And this unskilled labor limits the economic investments into our continent, and it reduces the productivity of the labor market. So when we started the pilot project with Mr. Ali's community, our aim was to transform the non-literates, the marginalized community, to access basic skills, to ensure that they can be financially independent. They can monetize their own skills. And so at this moment, one of our beneficiaries of this project was a lady called Mama Sham. She moved from the streets, and today she's sustainable, having her wholesale business at Park Road. And despite learning all these skills, she never gave up. She went back to her community to help the rest. And what does that tell you about ripple effect? Help one person, you never know how many people they're helping. Secondly, we need to access the right information and knowledge. As a young girl growing up, what scared me the most was a thought, a simple but a heavy thought. What if my parents were not educated? To some of you, it might sound trivial, but to me, it caused so much pain, brought some chills down my spine, and made my blood run cold. In my entire generation, my father and my mother are the only educated ones. And despite the struggles they went through to access education, they ingrained in us more than just education. From the formal education to traditional indigenous knowledge, to crucial life skills to survive in life. And all this they acquired along the way. And there's something unique about my upbringing. Between the age of 12 and 18, I felt like I was in a police camp. It was the tough drill for me. Do this, do that, don't do this, learn this. And I did not understand why I needed to learn all these skills. And some of these skills range from farming, tailoring, knitting, selling, chicken rearing, cooking. And the challenge was not to learn all these skills. The challenge was to monetize them and create an income-generating activity, which enabled me to develop a producer mindset and not a consumer mindset. And thirdly, one needs to understand the value of the resources around them. Do you know the value of the resources around you as Africans? I'll take you back to my village, where I have a friend by the name Layla. Layla is a 15-year-old girl, beautiful nomadic girl. She yearns to become economically empowered, and she tells me her stories of how she has to walk in the scorching sun in Garissa in search of water and green pasture for her livestock. She even gets severe headaches. And when she's walking on these dusty, rocky roads, all she can find is a green madenge tree. And for those of you who don't know madenge, Madenge is the poisonous tree that only grows in semi-arid areas. And what does that mean for Layla? She has to walk long miles so that she can find water and green pasture. That's how she strives hard to be empowered. But what is different about Layla? She is the breadwinner of her family. And when I ask her, do you want to pursue education and learn something? And she tells me, education is a privilege. You know where we come from. We have few teachers. I have over 15 siblings to fend for. What do I do? I want to learn, but I can't. And then I thought, what can be done for her? And so Layla has the skills, but she lacks the knowledge, the information to understand deeply the value of the resources she has. For her, she sees economic value in her camels. And one camel cost $1,000, which is 100,000 Kenya shillings. And does she understand this value? No. Finally, we need an enabling environment. This enabling environment that supports you. Social connection is the currency of the social wealth. And in our African societies, we've lived in communal nature. And in the yesteryears, African societies have never left anyone hungry. They used to think about their next door neighbor. When I visited Malindi in 2017, I came to realize how the neighbors were so caring. They thought about you. Some of them will feed you. Some of them will go around and ask anything that you need. And so I came to see how loving our African communities are. I know you've heard the famous statement, do you have connections? Do you know your neighbors? But do we actually, in this day and age, check up on our neighbors and to just see, are they okay? So that social connections really matters if we are yearning to be economically empowered. You've heard about, are you well connected? Do you have connection for you to get this job? But we've forgotten that social connection comes from family, relatives, and the community at large. You need to have someone who's your godfather up there, they say. But how do you invest in that connection? If you don't have the connections right now, invest your efforts in creating valuable connections with people. Your network is your net worth. And if we implement this apprenticeship model that we used to have as African communities economically empowered the future generation by passing down knowledge, traditional indigenous knowledge, information, skills. Through the apprenticeship model, your grandparents, your uncles, your aunties will come in and teach you something. But we have neglected that culture. So if we come together and implement these 4 main things that I discovered along the way, and it was affirmed in the World Bank report of 2017 that you need skills that you can monetize. You also need an enabling environment. You also need to understand the value of your resources. And so if you have these 4 main things, then we can know that we have a structural transformation that will lead to an economic growth. And what we need to understand is, Adam Grant says that for our society to be happy, it cannot have half of its population remain poor. So today's generation, you need to pass down these skills, this information, this traditional indigenous knowledge to the future generation to reduce the unskilled labor. And also, on the other hand, African organizations, NGOs, skills training companies, and the government need to rethink their model of empowering non-literates and marginalized communities. And finally, to revive our economy, we need a paradigm shift, which starts with you and I. Thank you.